Change is possible. This podcast will show you how. Dermot, can you tell me about the most challenging time you experienced in your life?
Sitting in a bathtub with a black eye, concussion, with my wife sort of wiping dried blood off me after I fell down the stairs of a karaoke club drunk and knocked myself out. That was a pretty low point.
That was a low point. I wasn't expecting that answer. And tell me more. What led to that? What was the emotional challenges underpinning that? The alcohol as well.
Yeah, I guess I was reaching for alcohol because, looking back now, not that I was acutely self-aware back then, but I was. Do you know what? I was tired. I'd done breakfast radio for 8 years. And that can be quite exhausting because you're up at 4:30. It's essentially like shift work.
Yeah.
And you're performing every day. So I had very little in the way of coping mechanisms or awareness of stress and how it affected me and how lack of sleep affected me and how alcohol affected me. And I just was very used to sort of risky behaviour, you know, that is kind of okay in Ireland a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And I guess, you know, that mixture of exhaustion, alcohol, a lack of self-awareness or knowing who you are, that's a cocktail that can just lead to little accidents and you know, and I think the universe sort of gently gives you signals and then sometimes it gives you a big kick up the hole, you know?
Yeah.
And long story short, I went for lunch in the afternoon. I talk about this in my book, Mindful. But I went for lunch in the afternoon, and that was in the days where the record companies took you out for lovely lunches and lots of free wine and things. And then I just continued on. And then by the time I hit kind of, you know, 8, 9 o'clock, I was going to a karaoke bar and just lost my footing on a flight of stairs. And next thing I knew, I woke up at the bottom with blood all over the floor, listening to a hen party sing "It's Raining Men." I was like, it literally is.
Literally is.
I just fell down the stairs. Yeah.
Wow. That sounds like a quite even a traumatic. Like, it sounds like it's really imprinted on your memory, like a traumatic experience. Was there emotions around, like obviously the physical impact, like you could have died realistically, but was there, like, you've struggled with anxiety, was there other stuff going on around that time too?
Yeah, there was. I mean, I had anxiety, definitely.
Yeah.
Wasn't really aware of it though. It's only again in kind of retrospect. Yeah, it's funny. I when you asked me that question, I didn't really know for a split second there what was going to come up, but I guess that did. So it is one of those markers. I suppose there's turning points in all our lives, and you know better than anybody. You know, sometimes I go to a psychologist, and one of the things he says the most is, just remember how far you've come. You know, and I think as humans we can forget because our normal becomes exactly that. It becomes normal. So you can be improving incrementally over time, but sometimes you have days where you feel like, oh, I'm not getting anywhere.
Yeah.
You know, and I know I'm completely preaching to the converted on this one because you have to know that going through your own addiction journey. But I guess these markers, as uncomfortable as they can be to talk about sometimes, you know, and as I'm talking about, I'm already thinking, do I want to be talking about that, highlighting those moments? And, you know, is this going to be a clip? You know, or and then I have to go, oh God, everyone goes, oh God, he's a mess, you know, or, you know, I'm thinking, is my wife going to want me talking about this stuff? You know, have we moved on from that? And
Yeah.
so, but at the same time, they are important because they show us how far we've come. Now I wasn't going through a period of that happening every day of the week. I wasn't an alcoholic, you know, in the general definition. I don't think, definitely had issues with alcohol, that's for sure, but I don't think I was an alcoholic, whatever that means. Yeah. So these isolated incidents can give the impression that you were like that every day of the week, and I wasn't. But I think what they are moments, are snapshots in time of where things weren't right and where things were out of balance. Literally, I lost my balance on a flight of stairs.
Yeah.
You know, it's a very painful metaphor for where we can end up sometimes, you know. And if we're lucky, these can be warnings and these can be nudges. But I could have broken my neck or I could have died, you know. I still have neck issues from that fall.
Wow, okay.
And I have to be wary of that. So, you know, I think, look how far you've come. Anything in our life, as uncomfortable as it can be to think about sometimes, those moments can be important because they show you how far you've come. So for me, when I think back to that Dermot sitting in the bathtub, I'd come back from the hospital, a nurse who had stitched me up drove me to my door. You know, these little angels that come into your life at these weird times. And I don't even know where that person lived, but it certainly wasn't where I was living. But they dropped me off at the door, and then I was having a bath. I think might have been the next morning maybe, and I had a black eye, and I was obviously in a bad way, and I had stitches, and at just that moment, I guess that was a challenging moment, because you're really forced to go, what in God's name am I doing here? You know, how did I end up here?
Yeah.
You know,
which is the awareness piece, isn't it? It's sort of, you have to look at yourself. You have to start looking at yourself.
But very quickly, if you can be in that, oh my God, I make 1,000 promises to myself right here, right now, and to the world and the people around me. But in a week or two, again, your normal becomes normal, and you go, whoa, what was all that about? That was a bit crazy, wasn't it? Want to go for a pint? You know, because the same coping mechanisms are there. So that's what you'll reach for, you know?
Yeah.
And I really, when I look back at that version of me, I have such compassion for that. I see him as a kid, even though, what age was I? Probably, it was early 30s, in and around there. And I see just someone who had no sense of self, who was desperately looking for the kind of peace that I'm lucky enough to have now.
Yeah.
The self-awareness, understanding of nervous system, of stress, of the potential power of stress when used well, the potential of an anxious framing in your brain to work to be a superpower, as you've talked about yourself. You know, I hadn't any awareness of any of that, and I just see someone who was doing his best just to deal with, you know, trying to make sense of himself and his job and his talents and everything else, you know. But the alcoholic programming is very deep. You know, sometimes I'll ask people if I'm in front of an audience, you know, does anyone remember a drink called Bass? You know, and some people go, oh yeah, and I'd make a joke about how old we all are, because literally that hasn't been a popular drink, you know, in at least 25 years. I think Bertie Ahern, our former Taoiseach, was single-handedly keeping it going.
Keeping it alive.
Yeah. But, you know, this was a beer, for anyone who doesn't know, that was popular in, say, the 70s and 80s. It was never quite it wasn't a glamorous brand.
No.
You know, Bass was
the
kind of
Smithwick's category, isn't it?
the alpha at the end of the bar, you know. But I asked people, does anyone remember what the catchphrase for that product was? Most people in the room would go,
Bass.
That's Bass.
Yeah.
You know, and you can think, wow, that was a really lazy marketing meeting. Like, that was the best they could come up with. That's Bass. And you go, no, that's one of the cleverest taglines. 40 years later, we still remember it. Why do we remember it? Because of its simplicity and its effectiveness. So what they did was they took the actual sound of a human relaxing. That's what we do when our nervous systems are just gently switching into rest and digest. And we just sat into our favorite chair, you know. that's great. We've just gotten into bed. Oh, what a day. So we take that sound and then they marry it to a drug. And they say, if you want this, you need this.
You need bass.
And
Clever.
it's stuck with us. So is it any wonder that this stuff, these are the things that we reach for, you know, and then beat ourselves up over reaching for, you know? And I guess it's part of that understanding, you know, when I look back at old me, it's going, look, it's okay. Of course you reach for this stuff, you know? My dad was an alcoholic. This stuff is programmed into us from all angles.
Generation.
Yeah. And here we were 40 years later, we still remember the catchphrase for a beer that doesn't exist anymore, you know, because this stuff is deep. So let's not beat ourselves up. Doesn't mean we can't change, but let's not beat ourselves up for reaching for things when we're stressed that, you know, we know on an intellectual level aren't that good for us.
Yeah. And I think that's the funny thing. Like, it is a solution in the short term. Like, it does relieve stress in the short term. It brings you into a bad place. But like, in the short term, I think that people confuse that with addiction. They often think a drug or a drink, like, why would anyone do that? In that moment, it was a solution for that person. It probably kept them alive in some sense.
Yeah. I found that really interesting, actually, in your documentary when you're talking to Lynn Ruane, Senator Lynn Ruane, who I think is an amazing
Lynn's unreal,
woman.
yeah.
But the idea that these addictive substances, sometimes they could have saved people's lives, because without it, the reality was too harsh and they may have decided not to be here anymore.
Yeah. Suicide was...
I've never looked at addiction that way. That really stuck with me.
Yeah. I never went to suicide, but I don't know how I would have been able to cope without the crutch of the drug. So it probably did keep me alive. It's a question I'll never know the answer to.
That's probably not a popular thing to say, is it? Sometimes, because people might say, "Hey, well, now you're glamorizing
it." Yeah. And I just say that. Like, I remember doing a podcast one time. I always say heroin brought me to heaven, but it quickly brought me to hell. And in one podcast, he just cut the hell piece. It was just heroin brought me to heaven.
Wow.
So certainly not glamorizing it, but like that just shows you. I think it emphasizes the pain that some people are going through. Like that's the pain. So it's not about the drug. We need to sort out the pain. We need to, and some of the work you do, Dermot, is brilliant. It's like the preventative stuff, the giving people the peace so they're not looking to escape their reality. That's where we really need to go.
Yeah. I guess it's questioning reality as well, isn't it? You know,
that's it. Yeah.
My perception of reality has changed a lot, in that there's a lot more space and peace to be accessed that I am aware of now. That's what I try and share in the book Busy and Wrecked, is that it's being able to see it. It's like, you know, I interviewed the Sean Ronayne, the chap who listens to birdsong. His mission is to go and record every bird species in Ireland. So he's just spent all his life listening to birds.
Yeah.
And ever since I spoke to him, and anyone who hears him, he was on the Tommy Tiernan show as well, anyone who's interacted with Sean suddenly finds themselves
listening to the birds,
hearing birds that they've never noticed before.
That's a gift, isn't it? The gift?
Yeah. So he's literally drawing people into mindfulness.
Yeah.
And I suppose for me, instead of birds singing, I'm trying to bring people to see spaces that they haven't seen before. So when the world feels overwhelming and busy, and oh my God, I have so many things to do, and my job and the deadlines, and I'll pick up the kids, and that frantic place we find ourselves in, being able to tune people or direct them towards, I know we have a lot to do. We all have a lot to do. And yes, we live in a weird time in history where the demands on our time and nervous systems have never been like this before. So we have to begin to change our perception and see space where we haven't seen it before, because that's how we're going to maintain balance. So I guess it isn't necessarily chirping blackbirds, but it's the spaces. And I think once we can tune our perception to small spaces, we start to see them everywhere, you know?
Yeah, that really taps into, it's one of my favorite lines. It's from an Eckhart Tolle book, actually, but be aware of the space that allows things to be. And I remember that line just resonated so deeply with me. I was looking at a picture on the wall one time, and I think of like animals or nature or trees for that spiritual kind of experience and the expansion of awareness. But I remember just looking at a picture on the wall, and I was saying, I start imagining the space around it that allows it to be. And it brought me to a really deep space. And that was like an entry point for me to look at those things in a different way. But the world pulls you back in. It's like you were saying, like there's so many things grabbing our attention. And that I think that's the challenge. That's why people are busy and wrecked. It's not internal, it's the external pulls from the outside.
Just talking to you there about this, it reminds me of a recurring dream that I have and have had since I was a kid. And I know your face, you're thinking, this is going to be incredibly poignant. Well, strap yourself in, Brian, because my recurring dream is about golf balls. So I grew up in County Limerick, quite close to a golf course. And as kids, we used to go looking for golf balls at a particular bend in the road because this is where golfers would send the balls over the hedge.
Yeah.
We take them, bring them back up to the golf club. Sell them back to the people who lost them.
Yeah.
And there was one particular place where, you know, this was where you were more likely to find golf balls. But I have a recurring dream that I'm back at that point and I'm looking around and I say, oh, there's a golf ball. Oh, it's a
Pro V1.
Yeah, it's a Pro V1. Amazing. Not a scratch on it. And then I look over and go, oh, there's another one. And then I look up and go, oh my God, there's loads of them. And then I wake up. So it's a little parallel in terms of the moments of space that we can feel like we're constantly looking, oh God, I just don't have enough time enough. But once we find one little pocket of time, we start to look around and go, oh my God, there's actually way more. There's actually way more incredible moments of connection with my family and the people that I care about. You know, once I make the effort to look for one, I start to find more, you know.
Yeah. That is quite poignant, in fairness.
The strange thing is I went back a couple of years ago to that place and I was calling into the next door neighbor of where I used to live for some reason. And I was telling her about this dream. I don't know why. I said, yeah, I was down, blah, blah. And I ended up telling her, I have this recurring dream about golf balls. And as I was driving away, I passed that corner where I used to look for the golf balls. And I just, as I was driving, looked in and there's a golf ball. So
Did you get him, get it?
I stopped the car.
Was it a Pro V1?
I stopped the car. It was a Pro V1.
No way.
And I picked it up and got back into my car. And I was like, oh my God, I'm straddling reality, dream world, extra dimensions. What's happening? I'm in my own recurring dream. But,
for anyone listening, a Pro V1's a very expensive golf ball. That makes you very anxious when you're taking a shot because you're afraid you're going to lose it.
Yeah.
I don't do Pro V1s anymore.
But I guess, you know, to give somebody something tangible to cling on to while we're talking about this concept of finding space, the one that connected to me very quickly was my meditation teacher, David G, just said, just watch your breath for a moment. So you're just noticing yourself breathe gently in and out. And then he said, you'll notice there's a little gap between your in-breath and your out-breath. And then there's another one between your out-breath and the next time you breathe in. Now, they're tiny little slivers of humble space. I had never noticed them before. Most people would never go, hey, Tony, there's a gap between my breaths. And you're not, we're just getting on with it.
Yeah.
You know, and breathing, I think why it's so profound a lot of the time is because it's literally keeping us alive. It's the number one thing that we cannot do without. If we stop breathing, we stop living.
Gone.
And we never think about it. You just get up in the morning, what have I got to do? And this little miracle is happening, just like an engine just ticking over the whole time. You know, and it's like when we sit into our car, you know, what am I doing today? Reversing out of the driveway. You're off to work. The day that car doesn't start, you're like, oh, what? You're like, I took it for granted. My engine just started, you know. So when I started to notice these little slivers of, wow, there's a little space there. Oh, and there's another one. There's another one. And there's another one. And you think, God, how many of these little gaps? If I added all those little gaps up between my breaths over a year, that's a lot of space, you know. I wonder what other little spaces can I notice? So then you find yourself in a conversation and you're like, do you know what? I'm not going to talk. I'm not going to just feel the urge to fill space here. I'm going to listen to this person here. And then you realize by talking less in a conversation and listening, there's more space, you know. and the person you're talking to is now feeling really listened to. Okay, there's some pockets of space, and I think that's just magical, because then it starts, I see it like a zebra crossing. Sometimes we can be looking at, say, the black stripes of busyness, and that's all we see. But then there's all these white ones side by side. So maybe that's a simplistic little analogy. But I still have to work at shifting my focus into that if I feel like, I've got lots to do. But just having lots to do doesn't mean that we have to lose sight of the space and the little connections and all those things that actually make life wholesome and fun.
That's it, wholesome and fun, isn't it? And it's nearly, it brings me back, because I do want to chat about anxiety before we go into the busy and wreck stuff as well. But it's like the opposite of those spaces and the breadth that you're talking about there is nearly that inner chatter in the voice. And I found myself, as you were talking there, I found myself, I'll say that, I'll go down that thread. And I'm thinking and I'm not truly listening, but all of a sudden you really honed me in there, like listening to that conversation, and I just sort of let go of all that and just really listen. And I just felt my nervous system being calmed down. But it's really like that inner critic, that judgments, that self-talk, negative self-talk, that's just a massive struggle that many people really find challenging. Was that part of your anxiety? I don't like to say your anxiety. That was a problem. I owned my anxiety. It was my anxiety, worse than everyone else. But the anxiety that you experienced, I have a couple of questions here. Was an inner critic or an inner voice part of that? But I've heard you speak about anxiety before, and you're a performer. You go on stage. You're nearly tempting panic attacks and anxiety. That's what you've done. But what I've found with anxiety, my mom had said it to me in the past, you were a very happy kid as well. And I think people either think you're anxious or you're happy, but they live together. And you were like anxious, but a performer, putting yourself out there on the stage. Where do you stand on that?
I think there's so many performers and people who work in media. Radio's full of them as well. People who go, hey, I'm the guy behind the mic, rah, rah. And then you meet them, at the kettle and they can't talk to you,
Wow, yeah.
So I think it's a weird juxtaposition, but they, like you say, they live side by side, like kind of weird neighbors. The desire to get up in front of a crowd, which is consistently number one of people's greatest fears, above dying, is public speaking.
It's crazy.
And yet, the next door neighbor is an introvert. Oh, Jesus, this is the worst thing that I could possibly imagine doing because I'm anxious about that. So this is that kind of little, that weird little relationship. And I don't know, I think most performers just feel like it's in them from an early age. They just need to be up. This is why a lot of performers are altar boys early in life.
I heard you talk about that before. I was an altar boy, and the first thing I had to do was ring the bell at a certain time, and I was traumatized that I'd get that wrong. But
the bell ringing is essentially like lead guitar. Like
is it?
Yeah, that's the role everybody wants.
Yeah.
It's like Slash. You're Slash in a robe.
Yeah.
But there's a certain twist of the wrist you have to give to those ones with, the big ones that you see in important churches. And if you foolishly waggled it from side to side like you would a normal bell, nothing would happen. So, every altar boy has that anxiety dream of ringing the bell and then nothing happens. So you had to give it a twist, and that made it ring properly. Yeah.
Right.
So that was the lead guitar moment. But so I think, most performers have that just draw to get up and do something in front of other people, and they don't know where it comes from. And I think it's probably just similar to some people really want to make things with wood and they don't know where that comes from, But it can weirdly live in this place where it's like it's this little civil war between I need to perform and then, oh my God, this is going to be a disaster. It's that push-pull the whole time. And you hear a lot of performers sometimes, and I've certainly experienced it, that if you hit a flow state, one of the components, as you know, and please, I'm mansplaining neuroscience to a neuroscientist, but please feel free to correct me here. But one of the components of flow state is that the self-criticizing part of you either disappears completely or certainly the volume on it gets turned way down. So I think finding flow is a really attractive thing for anyone who has a very loud, critical inner voice. Because for those moments on stage as a performer, it goes away, you know? And I used to get that as well with the first half pint of beer. And it took me years to realize that. That's what I realized my mind went quiet.
That's what you were seeking, really.
Yeah. But of course, you know, with a hangover, that voice is amplified a million times. So off you go again. So I think maybe to answer your question in terms of, you know, why would a performer or someone who's prone to anxiety want to perform? How does that work? How does that sit with me? And I think you're chasing the flow state to have that little pocket of quietude in the middle of a performance. You know, it's like the eye of a storm.
Yeah.
Right. But you're not always in there. And that's the thing about flow, is that it's tantalizing, because the more you chase it, the harder it is. It's like trying to chase a shadow sometimes.
Yeah, it's really interesting, because I remember I would have never seen myself as a public speaker, and I done the altar boy role, and I remember that terrifying me at the time. But when I found recovery and I went to college, I done a talk in front of the students. There was only 4 students, and I remember having I was so nervous that like my body was just reacting. I wouldn't say I was going to have a panic attack, but I was really anxious. But I wanted to do more of it, and now I just love public speaking. And the gig we done back in October at the Helix, it's the first time ever I completely forgot my lines on stage. But that turned out, luckily for me, to be one of the best moments of my life. Just the connection and the energy of the room was amazing. I had you guys there as well. But it wanted me to perform even more. So I think these things really can live together. But chasing the flow, there's multiple feelings you're chasing. But I never thought about just specifically chasing the flow. I think that's really...
I also researched people pleasing quite a bit for the book, and one of the traits that, you know, that psychologists say, you know, there's certain things. Are you a people pleaser? Do you do the following things? And one of them was, you feel responsible for how other people feel. And I think I've always felt that. I've always felt that I want people in the room I'm in to be happy. Or happier.
Okay.
And I think maybe there's somebody listening who feels that need, you know, if there's you go to a party and it all seems a bit flat. And I would have always seen it as my role for some reason, to lift the mood, fill the space, pick the right song, you know, get the conversation going. This person should talk to that person. They get, you know, and I don't know where that comes from. You probably trace it back to whatever's going on in your childhood. But I think there is that in most performers as well, in terms of I just really want everyone in this audience to feel better, you know? And it was always my mission on the radio to leave people, and Dave's as well, to leave people feeling happier at the end of our show than at the beginning. And I still really believe that I do that now. That's still my goal, is to help people to feel happier. I just do it in a slightly different way, you know, blending the comedy with the meditation. So I think in terms of performers, there's that as well. There's an innate desire to help people feel better. Because I used to wonder how other people can just sit there at a party that wasn't happening.
Yeah.
Like, how it was almost like, how dare you just be a passenger, you know, and wait for people like me to kick it off, you know? But it wouldn't stop me from doing it.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you're like, God, I wish I could just be that person who would just sit there. And now I am. Now I don't feel the need to suddenly get up and start, you know, dancing on the spot to help people feel like they're having a good time. And I noticed that, you know, that's one of the gifts that meditation and a bit more self-awareness and that stuff has given me, is that I don't feel the need to jump up, and I don't feel responsible. It's a desire. I'd like to help people feel better. But I don't feel responsible for other people feeling better, in my present. I think that's a bit of a shift, but that's the people pleaser in all of us. I think we all people please to some extent, whether we can't say no to things or, we feel responsible for other people and their moods and that kind of thing.
It's a beautiful trait in a way. Like, nice people are people pleasers, but it can become addictive. I think that's the challenge. There's something you said that there's sort of 3 changes that I was sort of, from knowing you and reading your work as well, Dermot. 3 changes, big changes. Like, name this podcast as Change as Possible. And I think you've gone from anxiety to, let's call it Zen. You're in a place of peace and calm now. I think that was one of the biggest changes in your life. And I think these are all interrelated.
Well, I'm not all the time.
Yeah.
I should point that out. I do a whole routine on stage about, just because I'm a meditation teacher doesn't mean there's things that don't stress me out, like packets of rashers that say peel here, but they don't peel. That will send me into a
They're
spin.
made to test you. I think they're Zen things put out there into the world.
Yeah. And people who can't shut the door of a steam room or a sauna properly. Who are you people?
Yeah.
So yeah, I get, but I understand things that stress me out and how to, the difference between little things that kind of add that bit of fizz of stress and bigger things and which ones to give my attention to.
Yeah. And is it the space? So like the rashers still get you, but the space is there. It's not going to send you off the rails all the time.
I think so. The difference, I suppose, if, how am I different to that guy who was in the bathtub, wiping dried blood off his face? Things still stress me out. There's no doubt about it, because that's what life does. We can't walk around in this blissed out state. It's not real. And anybody who projects that image on social media in particular is just lying.
Yeah.
The difference is things don't stress me out to the same extent. So I don't have these massive peaks and troughs that I used to have. I was really up and down a lot. And also, if something does stress me out, the stress doesn't last that long, as long as it would have. For instance, if I was in the radio studio in the mid-noughties with Dave, something didn't work, or I made a mistake, or pressed the wrong button, or said something I wasn't meant to say, I would freak out, get into a tailspin about, oh God, what a stupid, oh God, everyone just thinks we're knobs now. Shit. And it would completely color the rest of the show and potentially the rest of the day.
Yeah.
And Dave would be like, dude, it's over. It's fine.
It's gone.
Let's move on. And I'd be like, no, it's just stupid. And I'd be going out during the news, going down and smoking an angry cigarette, come for sake, stupid.
Was that verbal? Was that predominantly verbal for you? Like you were sort of reliving it in your head and telling it? Was there an inner critic voice there as well? Like, was there, you're stupid, you should have done that better? Was that?
Yeah, there would be a kind of combinations of, you idiot, you messed that up. People are going to think you're a knob. Like people are going to, it was only years later, I realized there was almost like these invisible personas of people living in my head. Faces of people I didn't know. They might be sort of intellectual students or something that maybe were hangovers from when I felt really insecure in Trinity. People who would be kind of stroking their chins and going, oh, God, how typical, He'd say that, the country bumpkin from Limerick, And like you've all these sort of, these people who live in your head who were amalgamations of, a sarcastic teacher, that person who put you down in school. For me, obviously, people I was intimidated by in university when I went to Trinity. And we have these we share the headspace with these people, little amalgamations of these people. And I think they can be just chipping away at us sometimes, And sometimes I hear them pop up these days and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. This person lives there.
But you catch it.
You catch it,
That's
yeah.
the secret, isn't it?
Yeah.
How many podcasts have a sponsor whose primary objective is creating positive changes around the world? With a focus on nurturing youth well-being, the Kind Foundation's message is simple. Kindness is powerful and worth paying forward. In each episode, we share a challenge inspired by their work and ethos. Small actions create big ripples. This week's challenge is about spending time in nature. Take a few minutes to walk outside into the garden. Go for a hike. Go for a walk in the park. Spend time in nature and immerse yourself in everything that nature has to offer us. It's and the other big change in your life, and I'm fascinated by this, is going from radio to going out on your own. Like, you had it made. Like, some people would say everything, like you had everything you wanted. You were on one of Ireland's biggest radio shows.
You're so right. What was I thinking?
But you followed your passion, you followed your dream. What was that? That must have been anxiety inducing in itself, was it?
It was. There's one thing about creating a side hustle. You can create a side hustle and get excited about that. Then you can have the conversations with yourself and other people about, I think I might leave. I think I might make a big change. But it was once I had the conversation, I'm not renewing my contract. I'm stepping away from this thing that I spent 20 years building.
Yeah.
And no matter how okay intellectually you are with these kinds of decisions, maybe for people listening, it might have been a relationship that they were building up to leaving. But once you have that conversation, then it's like your body physically starts to go, oh, right, so we are doing this.
Yeah.
And I remember
There's no rewind.
I was totally spinning out one day, just going, oh, and on one level, I was conscious and I was like, dude, get it together. What's happening? You know, these are really catastrophic thoughts you're having here. But isn't it really interesting that you're caught up in it? And I was like, oh my God. So I just took out my laptop and I just said, I'm going to just go write down everything that's spinning through my head at the moment.
Yeah.
And when I look back over it sometimes, and it was so harsh and catastrophic what I was saying, you know, how dare you do this? You're the breadwinner of the family. And oh, what? You're leaving this perfectly well-paid, successful job, something you spent 20 years building. What, to go and tell people how to breathe? Oh, great. That was the way I was talking to myself. It was coming out. And, you know, the word reckless kept coming up. Reckless. This is absolutely reckless. You know, putting your income at risk, and you've got all these beautiful kids relying on you. What's this on a whim?
Was that a parent's words?
I think it was probably my dad's word. Yeah, reckless. Yeah. And I wonder, I was really admire my dad for overcoming alcoholism, and I wonder, did he look back at moments of what he did as reckless? And in fairness, it was, because we came very close to losing an awful lot. Like, he was the breadwinner and he nearly lost his job, you know, in the 80s in a recession with 6 kids. That's no joke, you know. So I wonder, did he see what he had done sometimes as reckless, you know, reckless behavior, that unnecessary risk taking, you know, that I was talking about earlier. But but it was really interesting the process of just writing it all down. And once I had done that, it was like, okay, I got that out of my system. But when I look back now, you can see the intensity of that inner dialogue sometimes in our minds. When you see it written out, you go, wow, that is harsh.
Yeah.
You know?
And can I just say, Dermot, I seen you live first. It was at Georgie Crawford's event, and I remember just seeing you on stage, and I was like, it reminded me of someone that's the GOAT of what they do, the best of what they do. I could not stop laughing. Every time I've seen one of your gigs, my jaw is sore, like literally my jaw is sore. It's absolutely brilliant. And that's why I wanted you at the my own event, the charity event that we done there last year. And I was going to go to the board. Gosh, actually, it was a family thing in the end. We couldn't go. So I'm actually dying to go and see your new show. So I just wanted that. This wasn't a plan coming on here, but I just want to say, anybody that just wants to have a laugh and breathe, it's just a phenomenal show. So I'm just so glad that you took that step to actually do that, because I think you brought something to the world that doesn't exist anywhere else.
Well, thank you. But I guess for me, I didn't set out to do that. I just know what I relate to. And my meditation teacher, David G., an American guy, lives in California, an interesting guy, used to work in sort of high finance. Now he's a meditation teacher. So he made a big change himself. But he's funny. And so when I heard him talking about kind of, you know, ancient Eastern spiritual traditions, but making it funny, I was like, oh my God, this is really clicking with me, you know? This was really resonating with me. So I guess that's naturally where I sit. I find that if something makes me chuckle, it connects with me, you know.
Yeah.
And so he always talks about for something to click, it has the message, the messenger, and the timing have to be right. Those three things to be aligned for something to really click or for behavior to shift. And I guess up until that point, you know, if I was reaching for things that I knew weren't helpful, I was definitely ready for change, but just the messenger, just didn't have the right messenger.
Right. What's those three things again? The messenger?
So the messenger, and the timing.
Right.
So the timing for me was I was clearly uncomfortable where I was. You know, I was reaching for things like alcohol and risk and all that stuff to try and give me something. So the timing was right. I was ready for something different to come in. The message I had heard about meditation and stuff like that, but it all seemed very fluffy to me and intangible, and it just didn't represent who I was. I was a cynical comedian. I needed something to grab onto. So I just, the timing and the message were right for me. I was ready for those things, but I hadn't had the right messenger. I didn't have someone who was going to deliver it to me in a way
that worked for you.
Yeah, exactly. You know, so I think maybe I'm able to provide that to some people now, particularly men, you know, who can't relate to the message of mindfulness or meditation or seeing the space in things, or you know, but who know I am feeling really overwhelmed a lot of the time. I know I need something, but I'm not going to go down with a yoga mat under my arm with, you know, 90% women to a class or a spiritual weekend. That's just not me.
Yeah.
So I think the humor is a vehicle for a lot of people to move into this space where they feel safe. They feel like, actually, this could be a bit of crack. I might be able to laugh at myself here a little bit, you know, and have a laugh with other like-minded people. And then something might click, you know.
Yeah.
It's like my teenager started listening to guided meditations, not because of me, but because he found it on his Fitbit. It was part of the resources he got when we got on that.
The messenger.
So when it was presented to him in a sporting arena, fitness, gym, hoorah, he was like, I'm on board. Makes perfect sense. Healthy body, healthy mind. I get it.
Yeah.
You know, so that the messenger for him was the fitness world, you know.
Yeah.
So I think the more we can play around with different ways and present this stuff in a different way, just like you're doing, just like your documentaries did. You know, you're presenting addiction in a way that I haven't heard it spoken about before, you know?
Yeah. I think that's the differences as well, because we're all different, so we have to hear different messages, and there'll be different messengers as well. One thing that really strikes me with yourself, Dermot, is like, for a lot of people in addiction, like, I didn't have a choice. I hit rock bottom, and there wasn't much of a choice. But you, I find it extremely brave, because you had a choice. What advice would you give to somebody that's feeling stuck, feels like they need to make a change, but is so afraid? Like, you did it at a really high level. What was it mentally, emotionally, that gave you the ability to actually step over that?
Well, first of all, I think it's important to point out that, you know, me leaving my great job was my choice, you know, and I still found it and still find it sometimes, you know, really challenging because it's just a different world of trying to reinvent yourself, essentially, and be self-employed, and you got to be okay with uncertainty of finances and everything else. You know, there's a lot of people who find themselves in that situation who didn't invite it in, you know, they're just redundancy or whatever happened, or illness or whatever it happens to be. So I think it's important to point that out and not be, you know, too self-absorbed. But having said that, you know, I talk about it in my book as my inner potato, that there was just a feeling in my gut that I was ready for a change. And old me would have completely ignored that and poured a big pint of beer down on top of that feeling because it makes it go away, you know. And when we can listen to those little feelings in our gut, those little feelings of discomfort or frustration, you know, we're already on the path to a bit of change. It was a great quote I heard from someone recently saying, frustration is the doorway to insight. You know, sometimes we can feel stuck and we come home from work and we're giving out about John in the office and his stupid tie or whatever, and we're like, oh God, I'm so sick of it. I'm sick of this. I'm sick of that. And I think we've already started to change there. This is insight coming in. This feeling of frustration, as uncomfortable as it is the beginning of change. This is you at least beginning to decide what you don't want anymore.
Yeah.
Now we can choose to live in that frustration forever.
Many
if we
do.
Want. Or we can see it as that doorway to insight. Okay, I'm getting information here. So it was a little bit of a civil war for me for a few years, actually, of being in a radio studio thinking intellectually, this is the greatest job in the world. I'm literally hanging out with my best friend for 3 hours a day, having the crack, amazing relationship with the listeners, great bosses, great company. Everything's super. I'm effectively a half day every day. Why?
What am I doing?
And then
reckless.
A little weight. Exactly.
Yeah.
A little weight in your belly's like, That's not about how you think intellectually it is. It's about where your values are these days and how they relate to who you are and where your passions are and feelings of wanting to start to give back a little bit more or shift your focus and all that. You can't intellectualize that. That's a feeling. And so sometimes for a lot of us, we have moments where we have this little civil war going on. Your brain is saying, stay where you are. This is good. Anything could be reckless. You're going to put this whole thing at risk. Look at these kids. They're relying on you. Look at your missus. And then there's the other part of you that's like, go for it. Back yourself. You don't want to do this anymore. This is you 10 years ago. This was perfect for you 10 years ago. 5 years ago, high fives. Right now, you're not this person anymore. That can be a really uncomfortable place. And this is why we tend to reach for distraction or numbing or whatever it is to shut up that little civil war, So I guess your question was, what advice would I have? I mean, there are emotional things we can do and there are practical things we can do. So if we start with the kind of emotional sort of feelings part of it, first of all, open up to the frustration, as we were saying. So maybe just see frustration for what it could be, the potential in there. There could be important insights coming to you, pointing out that the software you're running at the moment is old software. Maybe these are plans you put in place at a particular time in your life and that's what you needed to do. But right now you're a different person. So maybe this frustration is trying to tell you that, your passions and values have actually changed and what you're doing, whatever we're talking about, relationships, jobs or whatever, they haven't moved on, those things that you're doing. So maybe you're ready for a change there. So make friends with frustration. If it is another thing that you're interested in terms of work, then start the side hustle. Sometimes we feel that actually the main thing we're doing every day it's not that we want to blow it up. That looks great on a book, the back of a book, Lisa walked into work and told her boss to shove it. And then she went to the ashram in India and discovered that, there's very few people who do that. And there's even fewer that actually works out for.
Yeah, more to the point, yeah.
Yeah, we don't hear the stories of the people, Tony went in, told his boss to shove it, moved to Spain with the kids, and it was a disaster. All the stresses he had at home were there, except now they were in a different language. Nobody... Now he's back at home living with his parents. We don't read about those in the, on the Irish Independent website. We don't hear about them. So gently start the side hustle. And if sometimes even just acknowledging other interests or other passions that have emerged in little ways can actually reinvigorate you about the daily stuff that you're doing. And you don't need to quit the big job or leave the relationship or whatever it is, because you're now acknowledging other parts of you in small ways that want to come to the surface, And then if still your inner potato is like, I still think I want to move a bit further. This stuff is really working for me. So, well then I guess I see it as, do you remember in Raiders of the Lost Ark, Indiana Jones is on the horse and he's running up alongside the train?
Tank. Oh,
the tank. Is it a train or a tank?
Probably does a tank and a train. I'm sure.
He's
Indiana Jones.
So at some point, they're going to hit the same speed and there comes a point where you go, I'm going to have to jump. It may not be perfect. It may be clumsy, but I'm going to jump.
Yeah.
And you will know when that is, But, the conversation that I was dreading the most was the conversation with my financial advisor.
I thought you were going to say a wife.
No, well, in fairness, I'm blessed with a partner who was like, go for it.
Okay,
back yourself. And I'm also acutely aware that not everybody is in one of those relationships.
very true.
Maybe someone else is saying, are you mad?
Yeah,
How dare you?
That's reckless.
Yeah. And a lot of people feel like they can't make the move, or it's going to cause even more, ripples that they don't want in their personal lives, perhaps. But the conversation I was dreading having was with the financial who's going to go, what? Are you mental? You're the main breadwinner and you want to do what? He was actually the guy who talked me into it.
Wow.
Yeah. And because I had said to him, I said, look, be honest. I was sitting just across from him like we are now. And I said, look, be honest. And I was kind of exhausted from the will I, won't I conversations in my head, because it is exhausting.
Yeah.
Any big decision, when we're 1 minute, that's it, I'm going for it. And the next minute, what am I thinking? This is an idiotic thing. But I was sitting across from him, I said, be honest. How many people come back into you after 6 months or a year and say, I've made an awful mistake. This is terrible. I'm broke. This is a disaster. How do I get back into my old job or something like it? And he went, do you want me to be honest? And I was like, yes, please. I need this. And he went, none. Nobody has ever come back into me to say, I made a terrible mistake. This was a disaster. He said, but I will tell you what I see an awful lot of. People in their 40s, 50s, 60s saying, I had the window. I was on my horse and I was looking at the train/tank.
The horse got tired and I didn't jump.
And I said, oh, I'll just wait. I'll wait till that kid gets through college. I'll wait till that leaving cert's out of the way. Or I'll wait till till I do this promotion, and then I'll see and then they're like, I missed it. And now I just don't have the energy, and circumstances have changed, and I just can't. I can't do that, and I'm not ready to start my own business or jump out of this relationship and start dating. I don't get that. That's what I see. People coming in feeling like they've missed the window,
and I think ultimately it brings us back to what I really want to talk to you about as well. Busy and wrecked. If you're busy and wrecked, you're not going to hear that intuition, that inner voice. And it's the inner voice that's really going to make that decision. That's who you need to be listening to. It's that inner voice.
Well, you see, busyness is avoidance. And that's something, not all busyness, but a lot of our busyness can be from a place of avoidance. And when I saw that, wherever I was reading it, it lit me up. I saw a moment when Gabor Mate says something to you in your documentary, and you're like, huh? You can see it in your face. It was like,
I thought I knew all this stuff. Obviously not.
It was like those excuse me, those cartoon swirls were happening in your eyes. You're like, oh my God, I'm somewhere else. But what was I talking about there?
The moment when you're seeing busy avoidance.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So when I saw busyness is avoidance written on a page, I was like, oh, swirling eyes. I never saw it. I never saw it like that. So when I was running around like a mad joke, being burnt out and overwhelmed and just saying yes to every single bit of work that came my way and surviving on very little sleep, and I realized, oh my God, I was hiding in work. I was hiding in busyness. So I didn't have to ask myself. I would never experience the space and the quiet for questions like, what do I want to bubble up? Or to be able to ask myself, who am I now? Am I still the same guy who wanted to get into stand-up comedy like back in 2004? Or has things shifted for me now? What kind of life do I want? What's important to me? What are my values? What lens do I want to see the world? What at the end of my life, what will I see success as? These are all big questions.
Huge questions.
But sometimes we invite in the noise. We invite in the packed schedule
to avoid the big questions.
Yeah. And it's not that we have to be sitting in great deep
Yeah,
thought on the mountaintop in the
philosophizing.
lotus position going, who am I? But that little gut feeling, that little voice in there is constantly whispering at you and giving you little gentle moments of advice and encouragement and nudges in a direction that's more aligned to you. But if we're too busy to hear that or to even begin the conversation, and that's why, we're going to miss it. And we're going to have that feeling of some point in our life of, I call it Limerick Junction. It's where if you fall asleep on the train and you suddenly wake up in Limerick Junction, you're like, oh, Jesus Christ, how did I get here? Nobody wants to wake up in Limerick Junction, but there's nothing there, like literally nothing. But how do we avoid that? Then it's not that we can't get out of that place, but it's a little bit harder. So when we can create some of that space, when we become aware of what elements of our life, of our busyness, we're inviting in just to cover up that voice, to avoid having to think about those kinds of things, because they can be uncomfortable sometimes.
Yeah.
That can help. And I always say it's not that we have to have any of the answers. It's not you're going to sit down on a cushion and say, who am I? And suddenly you're like, I am a teacher. I must begin to. You may not have any of that stuff, but you have to start the conversation with that part of you that knows the answers. And that can be simply taking, like right now, one breath into your belly, hold it, and then let it go with a nice long exhale. Now just ask yourself, who am I? Who am I? No big answers came. But you've now just started that conversation. So that little question is going to go deep inside you and it's going to start to look for answers. And maybe over the coming hours, days, weeks, months even, something will bubble up in a moment of insight. You're in the shower and you go, oh my God, I hate my job. No, oh my God, I must call that guy that I met at that thing as you're rubbing the conditioner in. That guy that I met, he actually was very interesting. I think I might like to get into a little bit of that work I think I might drop him an email today. So you'll start to get these little moments. Yeah. But again, if our world is so busy, our devices and everything is trying to take even those little moments. There's a reason we have ideas in the shower and insights.
Driving in the shower.
Driving, yeah.
For me,
and why is that? It's because they're one of the few oases left where a device or something isn't trying to pull your attention away or ask you to solve a problem.
Yeah.
They're those little places. And people have it when they do exercise. They go for a run and they're like, oh my God, yeah, come back with a really good idea. But those precious moments of space where those little insights from your inner potato can bubble up to the surface are being taken away from us, and they come when we have that space, those little insights. So we create the space to ask the questions. What's important to me? What do I want? That just sounds like such a simple question, doesn't it? It's almost silly.
Yeah.
We never ask it. We ask other people. We're constantly checking in. If I meet you, how are you? Yeah. And you're telling me about your documentaries now. I'm like, yeah, so do you want more of that? Is this the kind of thing you want to do more of? You're like, yeah, I want to. We never have that conversation, or rarely with ourselves. Never say, okay, geez, I've been going like a bat out of hell since
what do I really
since
want?
the kids were born. But now they're like 7. So actually, what do I want? This job, I've been in it for 15 years. So what do I want to do? And we would have that conversation gently with a sibling or a best friend or whatever. So we can have those conversations with ourselves.
But we don't.
The answers don't come up instantaneously. They might.
Yeah.
They don't come out like a normal conversation. It's a slightly more drawn out process where the insights come. So we've got to create the space for those moments to start the conversation, and we've got to protect the spaces for the insights to come.
And that's the key. I'm dying to read your book. I was going to read your book before this interview, but it says no, I'm going to rush it and I'm not going to get through it. But I feel I need it. I feel the whole world is busy and wrecked. I don't like overgeneralizing, but there's so many people are busy and wrecked, and I need to spend. It's interesting. I've just had to realize now. I says no, I need to give this time. I need to read this and really process this book, because it's something that's going on. I'm not giving out. There's fantastic things going on in my life, but lots of good things. But as a result, I'm busy and I'm wrecked. Now, that was last year. This year, I decided I really need to take a step back. And I found myself listening to the boards. I found myself putting that thing on my phone, look for the space that allows things to be, because I recognize that. And that's probably because of the work I've done in the past. But for many people, like, we've got to realize the impact that this is having. I think what's really interesting as well, it's a question I need to ask. It's not so much what do I want now? Because you said that 7 years, 15 years. We probably think, I've thought about that. I know what I want. Now, you knew what the old you wanted, but what do you want now? Because we're changing all the time. I think we've got to give ourselves that space to be able to answer those questions.
Yeah.
You know?
And often, like, that feeling in your brain, that rant that I wrote on the laptop, this is reckless, what the hell do you think you're doing?
Yeah.
That was the part of me that I had programmed a few years before, saying, this is what I want to do. This is what we're doing. This is the plan. Okay, we're on board here, guys. You know, like the sergeant standing up in front of his unit. We're going in there and this is our mission. And so the little soldiers in your head here, okay, cool, we're on it.
Yeah.
But you've never checked back in with them since to say, oh, lads, change of tactics here. New plan, new mission. So when I suddenly start feeling, I don't think I want to do this anymore. I think I want to just pack this job in and try something else. Those little soldiers are like, no. This isn't what we're on a mission here. This is to protect, Dermot 2015. This, you haven't told us anything else in the meantime, So no wonder you have these big dramatic, oh my God, civil wars in your mind. So, check in with your platoon and say, okay, slightly different mission. We're not going to blow anything up here, but, realize now that, I want to spend a little bit more time with my kids, or I'm really into the outdoors now and I'd like to weave that more into my lifestyle and schedule or my job, or, I think I want a bit more responsibility in my role. So, maybe that's one of my new values is actually leadership. Maybe I'm a bit more of a leader now. Maybe a bit more confidence. So why don't we plant that little seed, that little value, leadership? Yeah. So your platoon is getting these little updates and it's going, okay, let's protect that. I don't know if that analogy works. It just came.
I think it's great. I think it's brilliant. I'm thinking about the little platoons, the nervous little platoons. They want to blow up your home base and move to a new base. No, this is the safe base. Keep it. But you've moved on. I think something that really strikes me, and it really fits in with the platoon metaphor as well. Like, what's the values of the platoon? What are your values? And our values change over time. I'm very clear about my values. I think about them often, and it's really interesting. It's only had to come into me there. I've about 12 or 13 values, but my 3 core values are my health, my relationships, and my energy. I used to say energy, and I protect my energy. I'm always looking out for my energy, but I think that's really ties in with the health piece. But inner peace was a value of mine, but that's made it back into the top 3. I want inner peace. And I think through I had a fantastic 2024, but was so busy. I was doing the TV documentary. I'd done my first big event, and I already needed to clone myself before that. Like, I was so busy. And I felt the friction. And the friction was I was not aligned with my values. I didn't have the inner peace that I'd experienced many, many years ago through other things that I've done in life.
But that can be intimidating for people.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell are values? I was one of those. What do you mean values? It sounds like real self-help jargon. I don't know what it is. I mean, no one ever asks us really in school, write down 5 things you think are really important to you. Like you're saying, family, health, whatever it is. We don't do that exercise, and it can be a bit of I think I'd just rather look at my phone. Like
there's no real answer. It's not concrete. Yeah.
Yeah. But once we go, okay, do you know what? There can be as many or as few as you want.
Yeah.
They could change next week. Play with them.
Yeah.
Pull them in, pull them out. Keith Barry gave me a great bit of advice on one of my podcasts one time. He's like, look, what he did, he went on to Chat GPT and said, give me 100 values. And he went, okay. And then he just began to, whittling them down.
Interesting.
And then he got them down to whatever, 20 or 10.
Yeah.
Or so what's really interesting is that there may be things that jump out for you and go, God, I never thought that was really important to me. And really, if anyone is sort of confused still, or they find it a bit woolly, the idea of values, it's really just the things that are most important to you.
As simple as that.
Yeah, the lens that you want to see your life through.
Yeah.
And, you know, you said it beautifully, that when you do feel that discomfort, exhaustion, for me, it manifests as physical exhaustion if I'm not aligned to what's important to me, if I'm not honoring those values. Because we can say, hey, this stuff's really important to me. Family, most important thing in my life, you know? But why are you working 14 hours a day? Or maybe you have to work 14 hours a day. Maybe you have to have 2 jobs to just keep a roof over your family's head. How are you when you're with them? So you have this precious amount of time. Are you there? Are you checking your emails? You know?
Our phone.
Are you saying, okay, I'll catch up with you guys. You go to the park. I'll follow you down in an hour. Just, you know, so then it gives you a chance. And this isn't to make anybody feel bad, but it gives you a chance to go, okay, well, I'm saying on one level, this is really important to me. Am I actually at least trying to live a bit more aligned to that in my real life? You know, and it's a really helpful exercise. I did it with my missus in a cafe the other day. We just sat down and we started going through, you know, potentially her values. And you can have a lot of laugh. And it's really interesting if you do it with somebody else who you trust, who's not going to criticize you. Yeah. Because you can go, if that's really important to you, really, I've never heard you say that before. Or, wow, if it is, hey, you could do more of the thing then that you were, you know, so it can be a really fun exercise to do with someone who you trust, or a therapist, or, you know.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I'm obsessed with values. I read a great book years ago, The Road to Character. I forget the author, actually. I need to get the name of the author for that. But he talks about eulogy values versus resume values. And this really resonated with me. Like, your resume, I'm driven, ambitious, tenacious, and bold, you know? And I love all them. They're great. But I remember saying a question like, if you were at your own funeral, what would you want your loved ones to say about you? What are your values there? But it's those eulogy values: empathetic, kind, compassionate, caring. Like, it'd be a bit sad if you're at your funeral and people are saying, "Oh, tenacious old fella." It's great, you know? It's those human values.
You got that project over the line in 2008.
You know? And I think when you peel it back, like, so many of our values, they really core important values. It comes down to our relationships with other people and how you are in those relationships.
There's an incredible study, which you probably know about, this Harvard study that started in the late 30s. And a young JFK was in the first group. He was in the first class that took part in it. And it was a relationship study. And it's still going. So it's going from the 1930s to now and still going. And what they found was, beyond every other factor, genetics, environment, this, that, and the other, the main determinant of people's health and happiness above everything else, relationships and the quality of our relationships. And the healthier and happier your relationships are at 50, the healthier and happier you're going to be at 80. That's what they found.
It's even the biggest protective buffer for Alzheimer's and stuff like that. Like, biological diseases is the relationships you have. Like, so powerful.
Yeah. So, you know, and when you think of it in the context of loneliness, which is so huge for so many people, and as part of the research that I was doing for the book was in terms of, you know, the work setup, the work scenario has changed so much from COVID. There's so many more people in a hybrid or flexible work scenario. And, you know, there's a UCG study that shows that 89% of Irish people would change jobs rather than give up the flexibility that's on offer now. It's really important to workers globally.
Wow, that's a big number.
You know, so I love my job, but the flexibility is key. And I'm not going to give that up. And if you threaten that you're going to take it away, I'm going to walk, you know. However, and this came out in a Leah Wellness Wellbeing Index that came out a couple of weeks ago, there's massive recognition within that cohort that there are 2 issues that have emerged. Even in spite of the positives, there are negatives. Number 1, loneliness, disconnection. Disconnection to colleagues and to mentors and the ability to learn on the spot. So that's feeling of isolation and loneliness for a lot of people. And the other thing was an inability to switch off.
Okay.
So number one, loneliness. And two, an inability to switch off. The feeling of being always on.
Always on.
Because we're working different hours and that flexibility. So people might be, yes, I can collect my kids from this, that, and the other, and I can go and do that and bring my mother to the hospital appointment. But now I'm sending emails at 7 or 8 o'clock in the evening when traditionally I mightn't have been. Or they just feel like I need to be more available. And there's an amazing statistic actually, which I think you'll find really interesting, that came out of this, was that, and I saw it in the report and it was kind of buried in it. I was like, that's incredible. People who are contacted regularly, who say they're regularly contacted outside of working hours, are twice as likely to have addiction issues.
Addiction. Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
And
upper management specifically as well.
Yeah, that's unreal. And also that they discovered that just under half of the people who are regularly being contacted outside of working hours are being contacted on their personal WhatsApp numbers. So it's not even the work email. It's straight into your personal WhatsApps.
Life. Can't switch off.
Yeah. So I think, now look, there could be other things at play. Maybe people who have poorer boundaries with work have poorer boundaries with substances or whatever that is. But, you'd need to look into it. You'd be far more qualified. But, I thought it was really important in terms of the boundaries that we set for ourselves in terms of work. And yes, this new world we live in is offering us more in terms of flexibility and work-life balance and availability of time. But what use is that time to us if we're so distracted by work or whatever else it is that we can't enjoy that extra time we're getting?
The quality, like the relationships.
With the people that matter to us the most,
The quality of your time.
Yeah.
Yeah. What advice, Dermot, just conscious of time now, so just to finish off, what advice would you give to people that are busy and wrecked right now? Like, we're talking about the space and creating the space. Are there any sort of practical tips that you talk about in the book?
Number one would be forgive yourself. Please forgive yourself if you're feeling overwhelmed and a little bit more burnt out and all over the place, and you're forgetting where you parked your car and you're leaving your car keys in the fridge for some reason, and you're forgetting your kids' names. I remember I'm the youngest of 6, so I used to be Brian Con Mas Dermo. And then there was 4 boys, Brian Con Mas Dermo. And then sometimes the dog actually used to go in there. When my mother was particularly busy and wrecked, it would be Brian Con Mas Heidi Dermo.
We have only one kid in the house and she gets called Lily and Ruby interchangeably. I
know. So the demands on your nervous system and your energy and your attention have never been like this in history. Busyness and lack of personal time are celebrated. They are glorified. This busy badge, whether you're aware of it or not, is worn because we're trying to give ourselves a higher social status. This is what the science shows. So we are all engaged in this busyness and everything that's being demanded of our time. We've never experienced this before. So give yourself a break. If there's days where you're forgetting stuff and you feel like you're all over the place, a lot of it's not your fault. It's the world that we're currently finding ourselves in, and we're doing our best. Okay, so that's the number one thing. So stop beating yourself up, because what do we do when we find ourselves a bit all over the place? We internalize it. We start saying things like, what the hell is wrong with me? Oh my God, I'm such an idiot. Oh God, I forget everything. Oh my God, I'm late for everything these days. What the hell? I used to be able to handle this. Oh my God, maybe I'm not even up to the task anymore. This so-and-so is going to take my job now. She's coming up behind me. You start having all these things. So please give yourself a break. A lot of it's not your fault. And then the other thing is, start to find the pockets of space. This can be noticing something as small as the gaps between your breath. If you're not into meditation, cool. What are the things that you naturally gravitate towards, that where you find space? Is it playing football? Is it being out on the golf course? Is it walking the dog? Is it having a belly laugh with your best friend? Does that give you a sense of space and separation from all the busyness? What are the things in your life that you already know them? Because when we get busy, we stop doing those things because we think we'll circle back to them later. I'll call so-and-so and have a bit more time next week. You won't. You'll probably maybe do it in 6 months. But they're the things that are keeping you balanced. So try and find those spaces. If meditation is your thing, or you're curious about it, I've got 12 free guided meditations with the book. And that's a lovely way to slide into the passenger seat and let me, or the likes of me, talk you through it.
It's brilliant that you have that. Yeah, excellent.
Yeah. So yeah, and I guess just like the bird song we discussed at the start, being able to hear and notice those little spaces, and you'll see the transformative effects. You'll notice that you're blathering less in conversations. You're daydreaming a little bit more. You're having those little conversations with yourself. Oh, I wonder would I be any good at that? That could be something. You'll have these little moments, because again, at the end of our time, we're not gonna be going, Mary, come closer. Come closer. I wish I had been on more Teams calls. I really wish I'd had more Q4 projections. You'll be thinking, I wish I had listened to you a bit more. I wish I had listened to myself a bit more. Wish I'd taken a chance on that thing. Should have gone for it. How was I with you over the years? Did I listen to you when you were struggling? They're the things that we'll be thinking about.
The important things.
Yeah. Not how many things we crammed into our iPhone diary.
Yeah, I love it, Dermot. I can't wait to read your book. Genuinely, I'm dying to read the book, and it's something I'm gonna I'd say keep it for the summer. Maybe I need to jump in right in the busy time of May. But it's like it's such an important book for the world right now. And could I ask to finish off? I missed your Boardgosh gig because of a family tragedy was going on at the time. When is your next tour? Because I'm personally dying to go and dying to bring all the family to it.
Oh, well, first of all, I'm sorry to hear that. I didn't know you were going through that. So I hope everything is better.
It was a tough time, but we're coming through it. Yeah, thanks.
In terms of my tour, it's stopped now. I'm looking at doing a show in Sydney, Australia, actually, and trying to go off to other places in the world and try and bring the message of space to other places. But you never know. It depends. If the book it's doing well, it's a #1 bestseller. It certainly was for a few weeks. So if people connect with it and resonate with it, and there's a whole new audience, maybe I'll bring the live show back. I did it kind of backwards. Usually you do the book and then the
shows, yeah.
But, interesting enough, I booked that tour because when I left my job, I was not okay with uncertainty. And I booked it out of fear of, I need an income. No, there's practical necessity to that.
Yeah.
But it was an example of me overloading my schedule out of fear. And so if I, had a bit more space, a bit more patience, things that I'm always learning, working on myself, I maybe would have scheduled things a little bit better. But, these are all the lessons we learn.
Yeah, Sydney, here we come.
Yeah, I hope so.
Amazing. Yeah. Amazing. Thanks so much, Dermot. It was an absolute pleasure.
Thanks,
as always.
Keep up the amazing work, dude.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast. If you enjoy this content, I've created a range of online courses around mindset, mastering your self-talk, unlocking the secrets of addiction recovery and morning routines, and many, many more. If you're interested, simply click on the link in the show notes and use the word resilience to get free access to all of that content.